Good morning, Team JLA, Mr. Chairman, Anthony Kennedy, Madam President, Ms. Janice Cunningham, members of the board, specially invited guests. It is my pleasure at this time to present the introduction of our guest speaker. Am I being heard?
Yes, clearly.
Yes. Okay, thank you very much. Dr. Nicole Scott is an experienced educator, linguistic and academic leader with over 2 decades of service in higher education. She holds a PhD in linguistics from the University of the West Indies, Mona, and is trained educator certified by the Jamaica University College. Dr. Scott has taught extensively at both the undergraduate and postgraduate levels across several Caribbean institutions, including the Jamaica University College, the University of the West Indies, and the Northern Caribbean University. Her teaching and research span the fields of language and linguistics, academic literacies, teacher education, and curriculum development. She has conducted field work on Creole languages across the region, including Trinidad, Jamaica, and Ghana, and has a special interest in language documentation, bilingual education, and the language policy in post-colonial societies. Dr. Scott also currently serves as president of the Society for Pidgin and Creole Linguistics. She brings to today's gathering a deep commitment to language justice, educational access, and the promotion of Caribbean linguistic and literacy identities. Colleagues, please join me in presenting Dr. Nicole Scott to our meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Williams. So ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together as we welcome our guest speaker for the morning. Over to you.
Moderator, Mr. Anthony Kennedy, President of the Jamaica Literacy Association, Mrs. Janice Cunningham, Past President, Ms. Tasmonica Beckford, I see you're now on, other members of the executive, specially invited guests, members of the Jamaica Literacy Association, fellow educators, literacy advocates, other stakeholders, good morning. Let me first thank the executive of the Jamaica Literacy Association for this kind introduction to speak at this year's annual general meeting, and Ms. Williams for the words of introduction. I'm honored to join you under such a timely and powerful theme, enhancing literacy and peace through multilingual education. This theme touches the very core of the struggles and aspirations we face, not only as a nation, but as a region shaped by colonialism, migration, and cultural resilience. It reminds us that literacy is not just a skill, but a right, and that peace is not merely the absence of war, but the presence of justice, including linguistic justice. So I have titled my brief talk, From Silence to Voice, Enhancing Literacy and Peace Through Multilingual Education. It is often said that an effective opening to any presentation involves a compelling question. But instead of starting with a question, I'll begin with 2 stories. Stories that will ground the questions I'll pose shortly, and that speak to the real-world urgency of the issues we are here to confront. Several years ago, I visited a school in my role as a practicum supervisor. The students in the class I observed were lively and full of promise. During this literature session, one bright-eyed girl was asked to read aloud from her literature text. She stood, she paused, she whispered to her peer. Then she fell silent. After a moment, she said, "Me ready now," then began to read. She called the words, yes. But the reading fluency was awkward. The pauses were very unnatural. You could see the struggle, not because she couldn't quote unquote read, but because the words on the page didn't belong to her world. At home, she likely spoke Jamaican Creole. It was the language of her scolding, her games, her jokes, and probably her purrs. But in the classroom, it was treated as improper, something to be left at the gate. And so this child, like so many others, was expected to climb the proverbial ladder of learning with one hand tied behind her back. In that same session, the students got an activity. They got some questions to answer about what was read. One question was about how they would feel if they were a particular character in the story. I looked at what the student beside me had written. I was sitting to the back. She had written, "Me woulda feel F-E-E-L away, A-W-A-Y." Feeling the urge to probe a little, I asked her, "What you mean when you say feel away?" Her response told me that she knew how she felt, but could not express it in English. She just said, "You know, feel away." That's a legitimate feeling in Jamaican Creole. She didn't have access to the equivalent English vocabulary. Years later, in a university classroom, I witnessed something remarkably similar, but even more heartbreaking. I was teaching an academic literacy course to a group of year one undergraduate students. One young man was asked to read a story, a short expository passage, aloud. Again, he called the words, but his reading fluency was disjointed. There was no sense of phrasing, no natural rhythm that reflected understanding. Words that you'd expect any university student, even a freshman, to pronounce with ease became stumbling blocks. He pronounced words like environment, development, or he mispronounced, words like environment, development, and opportunity. These weren't technical jargon. They were everyday English words that appear constantly in academic life and in social life. He didn't strike me as lazy. In fact, he seemed eager to do well. But when it was time for him to complete a writing task, using just his brain and paper, no AI, I realized something far more troubling. He couldn't write complete English sentences. His submission was riddled with sentence fragments, unclear ideas, and basic structural challenges. I found myself asking colleagues, how did our education system fail him so profoundly and so quietly? These two stories, one of a bright-eyed girl in a secondary school and the other of a struggling young man in a university classroom, are not isolated cases. They're part of a pattern where children grow up speaking one language, say Jamaican Creole, and they're taught to devalue their linguistic identity. A pattern where literacy is narrowly defined as fluency in standard English, and where those who fall short of that benchmark are labeled as poor readers, poor writers and/or poor students. But here's the truth. Language is power. And when the language of instruction is not the language of the home, we place students at a disadvantage that has nothing to do with their intelligence and everything to do with access. These stories are not even unique to Jamaica. Across the globe, millions of children begin their schooling in a language they do not speak at home. And while many systems report high literacy rates, we must ask, what kind of literacy? And more importantly, for whom? In April 2025, Jamaica's Ministry of Education, Skills, Youth and Information announced a significant shift, as you are aware. Reading will once again be timetabled as a discrete subject for grades 1 to 3, with each class receiving at least 1 hour of dedicated reading instruction per week. The decision also includes structured teacher training in multisensory reading techniques, guided reading, vocabulary development, and comprehension strategies through a 60-minute daily reading block. This intervention is part of a broader tactical approach that has seen investments in reading specialists, many of you here were part of that, diagnostics, special education resources, and nutrition support, like breakfast programs. However, despite this proactive response to a worsening literacy crisis, where alarming reports showed over 70% of grade 7 students reading below their expected level, the strategy I'm positing remains narrowly defined. Literacy here is framed almost exclusively as reading fluency in English, leaving little room to recenter Jamaican Creole, the home language of most students. So in many societies, including our own, literacy has been narrowly defined as the ability to read and write in the dominant, often colonial language. This definition is both inadequate and unjust. It hides the reality that many students are being denied access to meaningful education because their home languages are devalued or ignored. Let me be clear. Language matters. It shapes how we see the world, how we learn, how we express emotions, how we build communities. When the language of the school excludes the language of the home, we not only weaken learning, we also fracture identity. This mismatch between the language of the home and the language of the school has been well documented in sociolinguistic and educational research. Van Herk, 2018, for example, underscores that when children are educated in a language they do not speak fluently, often the dominant or colonial language, they are not given the opportunity to fully demonstrate their cognitive ability. Instead, what we often mislabel as a learning disability or low academic potential is actually a linguistic accessibility issue. Van Herk wrote, and I quote, "When a child's home language is excluded from the classroom, that child is forced to learn academic content and a new language simultaneously. The result is often misdiagnosis, lowered expectations, and disengagement." I'll come back to that shortly. Similarly, Cummins 2000 makes a critical distinction between two types of language proficiency: basic interpersonal communicative skills and cognitive academic language proficiency. So BICS and CALP as acronyms. Basic interpersonal communicative skills refers to the language skills used in everyday informal interactions. This includes greetings, casual conversations with peers, asking for directions, or chatting about familiar topics like hobbies or maybe the weather. These interactions are usually supported by gestures and facial expressions and the immediate context, and these make it easier for learners to grasp meaning. Because of this kind of contextual support, BICS tends to develop relatively quickly, often within 1 or 2 years of exposure to a new language. However, this surface level fluency can be misleading. A student who appears to speak English fluently in social settings may not yet be ready to handle more complex demands of academic language. This is where CALP comes in, Cognitive Academic Language Proficiency. CALP refers to the kind of language needed for success in formal education. It involves understanding and using language in more abstract, decontextualized situations, such as reading textbooks and writing essays interpreting data and following multi-step instructions. I know I'm preaching to the learned here, but indulge me for a bit. CALP includes higher order vocabulary, logical connectors, discipline-specific terminology, and the ability to engage in critical thinking through language. Unlike BICS, CALP can take 5 to 7 years, or even longer, to develop fully in a second language. Now, this distinction is important because what it means is that many students, particularly in multilingual societies like Jamaica, are perceived as fluent in English because they can engage socially. But when it comes to academic tasks like reading comprehension and inferencing and abstract reasoning in the language, all essential skills for academic success, they struggle. Many mask that struggle and proceed to university. For those that the system catches, their struggles are often wrongly attributed to low intelligence or lack of effort, rather than to the fact that they have not yet developed CALP. When the first language, colleagues, is not supported, the development of CALP in the second language can be severely delayed. Note that I did not say the development is impossible. So when you hear the long-standing statements that many people have been educated in English only and they have done well, you should now ask, what was the home language? Because if the home language was English, then the students had a head start, they had the right start. If it was Jamaican Creole, the gap, and therefore the effort to develop CALP was much greater, and some never developed CALP. In Caribbean contexts, this disadvantage is even more acute. Scholars like Schubert Devonish and Dennis Craig have long argued that excluding Jamaican Creole from formal education not only hampers learning, but reproduces social inequity or inequality. Students are expected to perform in English without the scaffolding that bilingual or mother tongue-based education provides. And what are the results? Students decode words without understanding them, like the young man I mentioned earlier. Students withdraw from class participation because their natural language is policed or ridiculed. Students drop out, not because they lack potential, but because they lack the kind of linguistic support necessary for academic success. UNESCO goes so far as to call mother tongue instruction a human rights issue, pointing out that language exclusion can constitute a form of structural violence when it consistently prevents certain groups from accessing quality education. So when we insist on using only English in our classrooms without integrating or respecting the languages children bring with them, we are not promoting excellence in the truest sense. And I know some of you are probably saying, but the NSC endorses bilingualism. In intent, yes, but it is not truly bilingual in practice. Others of you may be saying that the Jamaican language policy says educators can use Creole to explain concepts. Some teachers do, others do not. Are teachers really equipped to provide the kind of bilingual support anyway? So I'm positing that we are perpetuating exclusion. We are building barriers disguised as bridges. Now the peace, literacy and peace, the hidden connection. We must remember that language is never neutral. It is bound up with power. Who gets heard, who gets understood, who gets left behind. And this is what brings me to this link between literacy and peace. Peace, as I said earlier, is not about reducing violence. It's about promoting inclusion. It's about recognizing the dignity of all people, including the languages they carry. This connection between literacy and peace is not often discussed, but it's real. When students are made to feel that their way of speaking is wrong or inferior, it does more than disrupt their education. It begins to dismantle their sense of self. Now, the impact is both immediate and long-term. It erodes confidence, because if your language is not valued, neither is your voice. It damages identity, because language is not just a tool for communication. It is a vessel of culture, memory, and belonging. And it breeds silent resentment. Resentment that over time can evolve into something far more serious. Disengagement, alienation, and resistance. Let's examine these a little bit more closely. When a child disengages, it often begins very subtly, as some of you know. Reluctance to participate in class discussions. Sounding familiar? Avoidance of reading aloud. Withdrawal during writing tasks. But beneath the surface, there's a deeper narrative. This place doesn't see me. This language isn't mine. What I have to say doesn't matter. Over time, disengagement leads to missed learning opportunities and a loss of motivation. Not because the student lacks ability, but because the environment lacks affirmation. If you do not speak English, that is. This disengagement can harden into alienation, a sense of emotional and intellectual exile within the very system that is meant to nurture growth. An alienated student stops seeing school as a path to possibility and begins to perceive it as a place of punishment or time wasting. They're going to start chopping the line. They may come to resent authority figures, teachers, administrators, even peers, especially when those figures reinforce the idea that their natural way of speaking and thinking and being is wrong. And eventually, this alienation can turn into resistance. Not resistance in the noble sense of political consciousness or advocacy, but a quiet or overt refusal to comply, to engage, to care. Students may resist reasoning. They may resist following rules. They may resist thinking through the consequences of their actions or even weighing their options because the system has not taught them to do so in ways that feel meaningful or empowering. And here, the connection to peace becomes painfully clear. When large numbers of young people feel unheard, undervalued, and misunderstood, they are more likely to distrust the systems that claim to serve them. They become vulnerable to poor decision-making, to peer pressure, to frustration that seeks expression through aggression. This is not just a failure of schooling, colleagues. It is a threat to social cohesion. This is where cognitive academic language proficiency, CALP, matters, not just for academic achievement, but for peace building. CALP is what allows individuals to interpret abstract ideas and perspectives different from their own. reason through problems rather than reacting impulsively, understand cause and effect, and therefore foresee the consequences of their actions. CALP is what enables them to engage in dialogue that considers nuance or complexity, express disagreement without resorting to aggression. In short, CALP nurtures the cognitive and emotional tools necessary for nonviolent problem solving, tools that are especially important in conflict-prone, economically strained, or socially polarized environments like our own. When students are denied access to this level of language development, particularly because their first language is not used or respected in the classroom, they are denied the very skills that would help them become peaceable, reflective, and constructive members of society. So when we ignore the language children bring with them into the classroom, we are not just impeding literacy. We are obstructing empathy. We are weakening critical thinking. We are contributing, often unknowingly, colleagues, to the breeding ground of dissatisfaction and discord and violence. If peace is the goal, then language justice must be the starting point. Multilingual education, grounded in mother tongue instruction, is language justice. It starts where the child is, it uses what the child knows, and it values who the child is. Multilingual education has been shown to enhance cognitive development, cultural pride, social cohesion, and yes, peace. When we allow children to begin their learning in a language they understand, and then gradually introduce additional languages, including global ones like English, we build bridges rather than walls. This is not about teaching children only in the mother tongue. I'm saying it again, this is not about teaching children only in the mother tongue. It's about starting with it, then building toward additional languages like English or Spanish or French or others. It's a matter of sequencing, not exclusion. If English is the first language, then the principle is the same. You start with what the students know. So we linguists are not talking about replacing English or Spanish or French, etc. We are talking about adding value to the linguistic resources children already have. This approach, endorsed by UNESCO and practiced successfully in countries like Ethiopia and the Philippines and New Zealand and our Caribbean neighbors, Curacao, recognizes that home languages are not barriers to learning. They are tools for unlocking it. Cummins, 2000, argues that CALP is more readily acquired when students can first develop complex thinking in a language they fully understand, usually their first language or mother tongue. According to Cummins' linguistic interdependence hypothesis, skills developed in a student's first language, the L1 as you know, can transfer to a second language, the L2. That is, if a child learns to read, analyze, infer, and reason in their L1, they are better equipped to transfer those academic skills to L2 contexts once vocabulary and grammar in the new language are acquired. This is why an additive approach, which builds upon rather than replaces the mother tongue, is so effective. It allows for the early and robust development of CALP in the home language and then leverages that foundation when additional languages are introduced. In contrast, subtractive models, which replace or suppress the first language in favor of the dominant school language, often undermines the development of CALP in both languages, leaving learners cognitively and linguistically disadvantaged. This position is supported by Thomas and Collier, who found in their longitudinal studies of language minority students in the US that those in additive bilingual programs, including dual language and late exit transitional models, outperformed their peers in subtractive programs in both content achievement and language proficiency. They concluded that developing academic skills in L1 for a minimum of 4 to 6 years is essential for academic success in L2. UNESCO in 2003 and 2016 also highlights that mother tongue-based multilingual education supports concept formation, critical thinking, and cultural identity, which are all foundational to CALP. It recommends that learners first acquire strong literacy and academic skills in their home language before transitioning to other languages of instruction to ensure equitable outcomes. So we're in Jamaica. And I'd like to classify Jamaica's position as one between promise and resistance. In Jamaica, the conversation has begun. The National Standards Curriculum promotes student-centered communicative approaches, and that's good. The Jamaican Language Unit has done a lot of work in advocating for the legitimization of Jamaican Creole as a language of instruction. Teachers are increasingly code switching as a bridge strategy in their classrooms. Yet the resistance remains. There are parents who believe English is the only ticket to success. Policymakers are there, they fear public backlash. Teachers who feel unprepared, we have teachers who feel unprepared to teach bilingually. We have a society that's still wrestling with colonial legacies that frame Creoles as a sign of backwardness rather than a sign of being or brilliance. Some of this resistance comes from misconceptions that using Jamaican will confuse students, that English alone offers upward mobility, that Creole is somehow broken or less than. These myths persist, despite evidence showing that children learn best when they understand the language of instruction, and that developing competence in both their home language and a second language actually improves academic outcomes across the board. But we cannot afford to delay this shift any longer, colleagues. We are losing too many students. We are losing them emotionally, intellectually, socially, spiritually, and denying them the right to learn in the language they live in. We must therefore confront not only policy gaps, but also deeply ingrained attitudinal barriers, including our own. As I come down, I have had to manage my own attitudinal barriers, and I give you a short story here. I confronted that reality in a very personal way when selecting a nanny for my son. As someone who understands both intellectually and professionally that multilingualism offers cognitive, social, and cultural advantages, I knew that exposing him to more than one language would be beneficial. But despite that knowledge, I still wrestled with an internal fear. Do I want him to be judged unfairly for speaking Creole? Initially, I chose a nanny whose speech reflected the kind of English fluency and accent I thought would shield him from prejudice. But when she moved on to a more lucrative opportunity, I had to make another decision. This time, I chose an older woman who genuinely connected with him. Her default language is Jamaican Creole. In fact, she doesn't even demonstrate full basic interpersonal communicative skills in English. She speaks to him primarily in Creole. I speak to him and other family members speak to him in either Creole or English. So he's growing up in a bilingual household. In fact, a friend of mine has a running joke that he says buckle when he's asking for his bottle. So he's growing up in a bilingual household where both his languages are valued. More than that, he's on the path to becoming biliterate, able to think, read, and express himself in both English and Jamaican. This experience reminded me that the barriers we face in promoting multilingual education are not just systemic. They're also very personal. We must all do the work of unlearning bias and embracing linguistic diversity, not only in our classrooms and policies, but in our homes and in our hearts. We need to shift from a deficit view of language diversity to one that sees it as an asset, a resource for learning, for healing, and for building peace. So I go back to the questions I mentioned at the beginning of my talk. What kind of literacy? And importantly, for whom? The answers? It's mother tongue literacy and additive literacy for all. Whether the first language is English or Jamaican, per or Jamaican context, it is mother tongue literacy and additive literacy for all. And the next question, how did our education system fail that young man so profoundly and so quietly? The system failed him because we are doing the same thing we've always done, and we are expecting different results. If language is the vessel of thought, then multilingual education is a path to equity, dignity, and peace. We must stop asking students to scale academic mountains in a language that cuts them off at the knees. We must teach them to read and write in ways that honor where they come from, not erase it. And we must commit together to creating classrooms where no child's voice is silenced because of how it sounds. This is not the work of teachers alone. Of course, educators need training and support. They must be equipped with, they must be equipped to teach bilingually and to affirm students' linguistic identities. Parents and guardians need reassurance that home languages are a strength, not a setback. They must be partners in the process, encouraged to speak and read with their children in the languages they know best. Policymakers need the courage to fund what the research study tells us and what they already have as some of the policies. Teacher training institutions must take the lead in reshaping language pedagogy and literacy. Communities must stand up for the linguistic rights of children. And language scholars and advocates and other stakeholders like you here must continue to engage the public and produce a kind of research that informs sound decisions. I make here a plug for membership in the Society for Pidgin and Creole Linguistics. The SPCL is organized in the interest of the academic community and is not for profit. We focus on the study and documentation of pidgins and creoles worldwide, together with other languages or dialects of other languages influencing them or influenced by them. We typically hold biannual conferences, and you're invited to join and share the research or the work that you have been involved in. There's a winter conference in January and a summer conference in different countries. This year, we were in Jamaica. Next year, summer, we'll be in Denmark. So I'm saying we need to be part of the discussion too. Because when we teach children in their language, their own language first, we do more than boost test scores. We're building self-esteem. We build connection. We build peace. Let's not merely teach children to read, to decode symbols on a page. Let us teach them to understand, to create, to belong, to thrive in all their languages. Let us move from silence to voice, from marginalization to empowerment. And let's do it together. Because enhancing literacy and peace through multilingual education is not the work of a single ministry or organization. It is a shared calling, I think, for all of us. Thank you very much. Mr. Kennedy, over to you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Scott. Colleagues, I don't know if you are excited as I am about this presentation. That was more than a mouthful. That was more than relevant to today's society. That was more than what we needed to hear this morning. Thank you, thank you, thank you very much, Ms. Scott, for such a insightful and informative presentation. At this time, colleagues, the floor is now open for any questions that we would like to ask our presenter this morning.
I see one in the chat. Somebody was asking what CALP means. It means Cognitive Academic Language Proficiency. CALP, Cognitive Academic Language Proficiency.
Thank you for that. Do we have any more in the chat? Okay. All right. Any more questions? All right. There be no more questions.
Mr. Kennedy.
Yes, go ahead, please, Madam President.
Doctor, in her presentation, she mentioned that there is this group dealing with the studies of Pidgin language and others that persons can join. Could you probably tell us the process, Dr. Scott, so that if there are persons with interest, they could probably seek to join that group?
Okay, sure. The website is spclsociety.com, and there is a membership link. You complete a form. It usually asks for basic information, your name, institution of affiliation, your email address, and there is a membership fee, about 40 US or somewhere there, not very expensive for membership. The society is also linked to a journal, the Journal of Pidgin and Creole Linguistics. So you could also submit papers that have to do with Pidgin and, well, the kind of work that you do in literacy for consideration for publication. And there are different membership categories depending on whether you're taking the membership with the journal or without the journal. So it's spclsociety.com. I'm going to put that in the chat.
Thanks a million, Dr. Scott.
Thank you very much, Madam President and Dr. Scott. All right, I see there's a link that is shared in the chat. Thank you very much for that. Do we have any more questions for Dr. Scott?
Just one more through you, Sir Chair.
Please go ahead.
My mind has been running all over the place while you were presenting, Dr. Scott. It's very thought-provoking. And being a literacy specialist for 21 years, I am questioning some of the, some of the processes that we have been using, and now how we can include more of some of the processes of CALP in terms of, what we're already doing, so that we can maximize and leverage, the outcome. I know that you mentioned that, even our literacy definition seemed to be narrowed and towards more of a English language literacy definition, which may include us, embodying the whole Creole aspect of the home language. I'm wondering if it is your society or even you yourself have actually sat down and started to draft what you think could be a more inclusive literacy definition, so that we can maybe start looking at it as a base point to kind of build and expand on what we're already doing. Because as you mentioned, if we're doing the same things and expect a change, we're going to be around like, in a cycle with not much movement. So I'm very interested to know if it is that you have started, if there is one that you are looking at, or drafting an actual literacy definition that would include the home language or the native language of students.
Thank you for that, Mrs. Jackson Reynolds. I've had discussions with linguists, and the Jamaican language unit has done a lot of that work already. In fact, we have a framework for the implementation of additive bilingualism in Jamaica because it was piloted. Regrettably, when governments change, funding also changes, and programs end abruptly. So we do have the framework already. What we need to work on are the resources, because if you're building literacy in the mother tongue, then we're going to need resources, yes? And we also need the teachers to be trained in bilingual delivery. It's not just about code switching. When they come up on certain terms and content, how that you're not used to presenting in Creole, what do you do? So training is necessary. As it relates to the creation of resources, just like you'd have resources for your English language lessons, AI is offering us a lot of help, or can offer us a lot of help. And this was one of the big themes that came out of the Society's summer conference on the 24th and the 25th from the 25th to 27th of June this year, that it's not perfect. AI is not perfect for, say, drafting information in Jamaican Creole, because yes, there's the standard writing system, but the AI software, or the popular ones, have been trained on what we call the chaka chaka writing system, for example. So that's what it knows now. So it has to be further trained in using the official writing system for Jamaican Creole, for example, so that materials can be developed. And you don't have to wait on the JLU to do it. Educators, you can do it. You can use the technology. So it is training and resource development. We already have the framework in place.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Scott. We will definitely contact you and be in touch with you to further discuss, possibilities for the future. Blessings.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any more questions? Have space for one more question. All right, there be no more questions. We are going to invite at this time Mrs. Dulcie Townsend to bring the vote of thanks to our, okay, no. Please hold a minute, Miss Townsend. At this time, we're going to invite Mrs. Monica Beckford to bring us greetings.
All right, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I apologize for not being on time for the meeting. I am also on the National Summer Academy group, and I was doing lessons with the children from grade 5 and 6. So that's why I wasn't able to come in on time. But I want to use this opportunity to welcome everybody to our AGM. I want to also, in brief, just say a big thank you to our guest speaker. And I am going to just go into, I'm going to go into my little reading song that I've been teaching all across the country for the grade 1 to 3 teacher training session. I want to share it with you. So I'm going to sing it for you. Give me a few seconds. All right, I must apologize. So the title of the little jingle is Read to Lead to Succeed. You might hear others going around with it. And if you haven't, I'm going to share it with you right now. And it goes, I'm going to have to clap. Read to lead to succeed. So that is the first part of the song. Read to lead to succeed. So this is how it goes. I'm going to have to clap because I forgot that you can't do it with me. Read to lead to succeed. Read to lead to succeed. Read to lead to succeed. If you want to be a farmer, you must read, teacher, lawyer, or a doctor. You must read social media influencer. You must read if you want to be a driver. You must read. Read to lead to succeed. 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 Pilots read, policemen read, nurses, architects, accountants read, pastors read, politicians read. So if you want to be trending, you must read. Read to lead to succeed. 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 Teachers read, hoteliers read, scientists, poets, mathematicians read, astronauts read, librarians read, head cook and buckle washer. You must read. Read to lead to succeed. All right? Read to lead to succeed. If you want to be trending, you must read. If you want to be trending, you must read. If you want to be trending, you must read. If you want to be trending, you must read. All right. So that is the little jingle that I'm going to leave with you on behalf of the National Literacy Team from the Ministry of Education. And as past president, I want to encourage you to encourage others. It matters not your age and your stage and your title. Encourage everyone to go back to taking up your books, taking up a book to read for leisure, for pleasure. Read to lead to succeed. Thank you for being here. Thank you for this opportunity and have a wonderful, wonderful rest of the day.
Thank you very much, Madam former President. At this time, we invite Miss Jean Brown to do a bit of entertainment. Auntie Jean, over to you. All right. While Auntie Jean prepares herself, I'm going to be asking a few questions and you can answer in the chat. 4 countries were mentioned in the presentation closer to the end that were participating. 4 countries were mentioned. If we can name one of the countries, the international countries, and one from the region that was mentioned, a $500 credit is yours. So mention one of the international ones in the chat along with the regional country. That is question number 1. That is question number 1. So please go ahead. Auntie Jean, are you ready to present? All right. All right, we're going to move right along then. No, Jamaica is not the country that was mentioned. So you need to give me 2 countries, one of the international countries and one from the region. All right, colleagues, so the countries that were mentioned, they are using, I just saw it, they are using the approach that adds values to the linguistic resources children already have. Right, so the one in the Caribbean begins with C, and I heard one from Africa, and I heard another one from Europe, and I missed one of them. I jotted down 3. So if you can name one of the international ones and the one from the Caribbean region, $500 credit is yours. And it is not Cuba. So, all right. All right, at this time.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
JTA President is on.
All right, so at this time, we will take greetings from the President of the Jamaica Teachers Association, Dr. Mark Smith. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much. Morning, everyone. Forgive me, I am toggling between 2 meetings. Master of Ceremonies, Mr. Anthony Kennedy, and Mrs. Janice Cunningham, President of the Jamaica Literacy Association. All the members are on the call, and of course, our keynote speaker. Good morning. The theme, enhancing literacy and peace through multilingual education, I think is a timely one. I want to commend you all for the work that you continue to do in supporting this critical aspect of our development as a people. It is Professor Errol Miller once remarked, ironically, that schooling in Jamaica is not credited for the level of functional literacy that exists within the society, but rather is blamed for the level of functional illiteracy that persists. And so it's true. The reality is our literacy rate is somewhere in the level of around 89%. And while we would have made significant advancements since independence on the matter of literacy, I do believe, much like Cuba, we must focus on getting 100% literacy. And of course, as the presenter, I was able to jump on the call a little earlier, and I heard the presenter talking about literacy, and it's much wider than just literacy relates to reading and comprehension. But certainly within this context, I know the focus greatly is on ensuring that we're able to put in place policies that are able to fundamentally change the narrative when it comes on to literacy within the Jamaican context. As a people, to unearth our true potential, it requires us to be able to move significantly above the 89%. That being said, I want to take the opportunity to commend you and all our educators, all others within the space that continually agitate, advocate, and work extraordinarily hard to boost the literacy levels across the island. It is important that we recognize the significance of literacy in releasing the latent potential of our people and ensuring Jamaica can take its rightful place as one of the most productive countries within the world, because there's a great correspondence we see between high productivity and high literacy rates. But colleagues, I want to speak with you briefly about something that is also very important, and that is the recognition of where we are and how technology can be used within this particular space to ensure that we are able to achieve the full potential this small island state possesses. I want us for a moment just to understand that if we think that the internet changed our relationship with knowledge, AI is going to fundamentally change our relationship with thinking. And this really asks us to redefine what teaching is. How do we engage and build better opportunities for our children to learn? How do we, really fundamentally rethink what education and work is about? And I think it's essential that as educators, we begin to talk about these issues, even within the space of literacy, within the space of numeracy, within the space of general academia, because there are there's a significant opportunity, I think, that exists for us to close those literacy gaps, but we must be open to leverage technology in achieving this. For a long time, many of our universities work off a simple idea that knowledge was scarce. And if you go back to the 60s and the 40s and even earlier, you'll find that literacy, that skill set of being able to read was scarce. Now we have it around 89%, still have more that we can achieve. But the truth is, we're in a paradigm now where knowledge, the scarcity of knowledge on which we have predicated many jobs, has changed. You see, at the end of the day, we are in an era in which it is quite different. The cost of knowledge will be driven down because of the use of artificial intelligence. And so we have a lot of work to do as educators, as people within the space that understand the value and the importance of being able to empower learners through education. And as I've often said, that the basic building blocks of modern intelligence really lies with two things: literacy and numeracy. And we move towards a more peaceful, socially stable society when more of our citizens are recognized as achieving mastery in literacy. And so we have a responsibility to use all the tools. I have been heavily engaged in discussions with the University of the West Indies and other institutions to look at the issue of multilingual education, particularly teaching English as a second language. I am particularly excited about it. And I'll tell you that I was one individual that was not necessarily attuned with that approach. But I believe when you face new information, you must embrace it for its inherent value. And consequently, I have shifted my position on this. And I think that we owe it to ourselves and to our colleagues, and most importantly, to the children of this country, to embrace the opportunities that exist there and leverage that with the advancement in technology. Once again, it is a great honor and a privilege to have the opportunity to address you in this forum. I thank you for the work that you're doing, and I bring warm greetings on behalf of the 20,000 members of Jamaica Teachers Association. Let us, colleagues, continue to unite and serve as we continue to uplift Jamaica land we love. Bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, Dr. Smith. At this time, we invite Miss Jean Brown, as she brings to us a poem. Auntie Jean, over to you.
Thank you. So very sorry, Mr. Sherman, but my camera is not opening. I don't know if you have the privilege to do so. But colleagues all, what a morning we have had so far. The story is entitled Anansi and the Literacy Contest. Once upon a time, when all the animals them could talk, Anansi lived in a place called Peaceful Village. The people them of the village was very talented. Them could have run, play cricket, jump, swim and dance. But Anansi never get none of them the kind of talent. But of course, he have his own little nice talent them. So, when I go and know I hear a little song every time me say, man no dead, no call him dopey, one cocoa full of basket, a little bit of love, we help him make it. No, as you know, Anansi was a witty little boy. But him mother never used to encourage him. Every day she was out Anansi. Move around, so you're coming like your old workplace papa. And Nancy used to feel real bad. And sometimes he even cried. But man no dead. No call him dopey. Right? Even at school, them used to taunt Anansi. And the teacher used to look down upon him and talk about, Anansi, why are you so lazy, boy? Why do they even bother to send you here? Why? You are so dense. And then she would sit down by himself and cry and cry and cry. And the people them start to nickname him Cry Cry Baby. But remember, man no dead. So call him dopey. Hey, hey. One day, all of that changed. Because one new girl come at the school and then put the girl right in a Nancy class. So the girl come over and say, hi, my name is Pretty May. What's your name? And Nancy say, me and Ananti Wukumbine. So she said to him, but Anansi, you can't read, man. Anansi yot, what me can't read? Me can't read, good. You know, take a clean a mere weed. Pretty May said to him, so if you read in the Gleaner, how comes the newspaper turned upside down? The people them who were outside and listen, start to laugh up and Nancy and tease him and start to sing, cry, baby, moonshine, darling, go on your yard because you can't learn a thing. When the new girl hear that, she was very, very annoyed. And the girl tell Anansi say she will help him to read. So Anansi say, you will help me to read. And she said, of course. I used to have a lot of nice reading teachers at my school, at my old school, and I learned a whole heap of things. So she and Anansi make a plan. Every lunchtime, the girl and Anansi in a class, I practice spelling, reading, writing. She makes sentences and Anansi repeat them. Them read and play word games until Anansi improve up whole heap in reading. Hey, one day them decide to play one reading game called Little Big. She give Anansi one little word and Anansi will give one big one for her. Man no dead, no call him dopey. One cocoa full of basket, a little bit of love, a little encouragement will help him make it. Yes, man. So every day, almost one whole school year, and Nancy and the sit down and them learn. She teach him and him learn. One day, teacher announced that them going to enter the QEC Literacy Festival and she needs some good readers. Guess what happened? And Nancy hand flash up in the ear like lightning. Teacher was about to tell him to take down the hand. But same time, the principal step in the classroom and said, "Oh, very, very good. We have a boy competing." Hey, teacher don't know say Anansi improve up, you know. So she didn't want Anansi to look bad in the presence of the principal. So she gave Anansi one passage to read. Nancy read, yeah. Teacher frightened so till her eye them nearly drop out her head. But she go on like she all right. She give him word for spell and Nancy get the word them right. She ask him question and Nancy get 9 out of 10. Then teacher said, "Okay, Nancy, please give us a synonym for each of these." First one, room. Here, Nancy yelled, "Accommodation." Teacher said, "Friendly." Nancy said, "Amicable." Teacher said, "Start." And Nancy said, "Commence." Teacher said, "Waste." And Nancy said, "Extravagant." Then teacher said, "Okay, Nancy, to end this, because this is the protocols of the competition, you'll have to do a DJ. That's the final thing in the competition." And Nancy take up one piece of battlefield mic. And Nancy hold you up and Nancy say, "Pick up yourself. Pick up yourself, everybody. Selector. I want to pick up the Muslim out there. And I want to pick up my producer, Pretty May. Me it Ananti, dead and wake, who combine. I want me say, man no dead. No call him dopey. I want one cocoa for your pocket. I committed to which one we help him make it. We help him make it. People, the class turned upside down. The principal was very pleased. And they decided that Anansi was the boy to enter the competition representing Peaceful Valley Primary. The day of the festival come, and Anansi go down there, Anansi create history. Everything Anansi did except and when it comes to the DJ part now, and Nancy pick up the mic and Nancy said, "I am Ananti, who combine representing the one and only People Valley of Plymouth School. I want to big up all the massive. I want to big up my producer with me. And let me tell you. I'm man no dead. No call him dopey. One go for your pocket. And you could be love. We help him make it. We help him make it. We help him make it. The competition mash up. And Nancy win out. And everybody starts to lift up and Nancy. And Peaceful Valley won the competition overall. So, brethren and sisters, brothers and sisters, man no dead. No call him dopey. Pitney no dead. No call him dopey. Make him learn in a native language. And you build upon for a little bit of encouragement will help him make it. Jack Mandora, me no choose none. Back to you, Mr. Kennedy.
All right, thank you very much, Auntie Jean. Man no dead. No call him Dopey. All right. Somebody in the chat said, "Big up Auntie Jean, very entertaining." What was that? Let him learn the patois. All right. Thank you very much again, Auntie Jean. At this time, we invite Mrs. Dulcie Townsend to bring us the vote of thanks. Over to you, Auntie Townsend.
What a morning it is. On behalf of the members of the Jamaica Literacy Association, it is indeed my pleasure to express gratitude to all who are present here today, this morning, in fact. This is our annual general meeting of the Jamaica Literacy Association. And we are all gathered here this morning in keeping with the theme, enhancing literacy and peace through multilingual education. You will agree with me that I must begin by addressing our presenter. To our presenter, Dr. Nicole Scott, thank you for your inspiring and thought-provoking presentation. It was thick, it was rich, and it was robust. So much food for thought and for inspiring us as the Jamaica Literacy Association, for us to advance our efforts to seek to promote literacy across Jamaica. As stakeholders on the literacy landscape, your insights and expertise have truly enriched our understanding and have motivated us to move on. And I'm sure we will utilize these new ideas that you have proffered, and we will seek to promote, to use them to promote literacy as we seek to continue to add value to education. To Mrs. Linda Lauser, we thank you for leading us in a truly inspirational devotional activity. Our spirits were truly uplifted, Mrs. Lauser. Thank you. We also would like to extend gratitude to our president for the warm welcome and greetings that she brought to us. Your support meant a lot to us. Thanks to Miss Beckford for your jingle. Read to lead to succeed. That's a truth indeed. Thank you all for making this event a success. And we would only like to thank our moderator for skillfully conducting the program and ensuring that everything ran smoothly. And I will not leave you out, Miss Jean Brown. Miss Jean Brown, we appreciate your enjoyable contribution, your story, which added to our awareness of the importance of the acquisition of literacy skills. Thanks for adding to the success of this gathering. We also would like to extend our gratitude to Dr. Mark Smith. We are honored to have your presence, sir, with us. We thank you for the nuggets that you shared with us. And we have always been sharing with the Jamaica Teachers Association. And I just think that you have just given us something more to share with you some more. Thank you so much for coming, sir. And to all the participants and members of the Jamaica Literacy Association, thank you for your engagement and commitment to literacy. Your presence and contributions are valued. Thank you for your interest and commitment as we continue to make our association a beacon of hope. Thanks again. Mr. Kennedy?
Thank you very much, Madam Thousand, for thanking us. Colleagues, all on my behalf, thank you for taking the time out, for being with us, for sharing with us this morning. I'm sure we can all say it was a well-spent morning, one that even if we were complaining to the Lord, they're gone into my little summer break, it was a very informative morning, very informative presentation. So much to chew on over the break to prepare for the upcoming school terms. My winner this morning is Monique Reynolds. Miss Reynolds, please to forward your number. I sent you a private message so we can forward your phone card. The answer that she gave was Ethiopia and Curacao. The other international country was New Zealand. I think I missed one, but Curacao was the one from the region, and Ethiopia was one of the international countries. So as we go forward under the theme enhancing literacy and peace through multilingual education, let us use up our mother tongue in our day-to-day teaching and learning and stop treating as if it is something to look down on. Multiple times I've heard the speaker and even those who ask questions after the speaker state that if we continue to do something the same old way, expecting a different outcome, I'm sure somewhere along the road I heard that that is madness, and I'm sure we're not mad. So let us try something new. Let us use up the approach that was shared with us today as we continue to strive to make Jamaica land we love the place to live, learn, and grow our families. We now end the morning session, the public session, and we're gonna take a minute or two and then we move into our business session.
May I ask a question, please?
Please go ahead.
Yes, I'd like to know how to get in touch with this association via email or WhatsApp.
All right, that would be, we will share that in the chat. Could somebody please share the email and contact information in the chat? All right, the email was shared in the chat, so you can retrieve it from there. Thank you very much.
Can the person who asked the question put her number for us, please? Can you put a contact number for us, please? Thank you. The
Sure.
person who asked the question for the email address. Can you
Sure.
also, yes, thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. Kennedy, because I had gotten kicked off. I am not seeing the information that the presenter had placed in the chat. Is it possible for it to be replaced, or that I get a copy of the recording in order to assist with the minutes?
I think you will get a copy of the recording.
Okay, then. Thank you much.
All right, colleagues, welcome to the business session of our AGM. At this time, we invite the president, Ms. Janice Cunningham, to bring the president's report. Madam President, if you are talking, we are not hearing.
Good morning again. I'm sorry about that. I just moved away from my device a little. So good morning again, everyone. I must apologize for my camera not being able to turn on. I'm going to try probably to join on my phone so that I can be seen while I speak. Just bear with me a few, please. Thank you. If anything will go wrong, it certainly does. The phone is also posing some challenges. So I'll probably just remain with the laptop. The phone is posing some problem also. It is with great pleasure that I present my report for the Literacy Association's activities for the year 2024-2025. The board met several times throughout the year to plan. Are you hearing? Are you hearing me?
Yes, Madam President.
Okay. Sorry about that. So the board would have met several times throughout the year to plan, strategize, and implement activities aligned with our mission of promoting reading and the teaching of reading at all levels. Our efforts were driven by our commitment to foster literacy development and building professional expertise across the nation. During September, we celebrated Literacy Month and, of course, International Literacy Day. So September was declared Literacy Month. We marked the occasion with a celebration of International Literacy Day on September 22, 2024, when we had staged a webinar under the theme Promoting Multilingual Education, Literacy for Mutual Understanding and Peace, with keynote speaker Dr. Louis Focum from the University of the West Indies. And yes, we had a very successful webinar. She engaged and with thought-provoking ideas. This webinar really sparked an interest, and we had meaningful dialogue afterwards. As a part of our outreach to families during Parent Month, which is November, a seminar was hosted during that month under the theme Surfing Beyond the Surface. The presenter was none other than Miss Monica Beckford, past president of the JLE and Region 6 Literacy Coordinator. The session provided meaningful strategies for parenting and for the parents to better support their children's literacy journey at home and, of course, in school, with a focus on deepening understanding and engagement And of course, she emphasized surfing the internet. Our annual fundraising event was held in February. So we hosted the First Lady production of Basil Dawkins, and it was well received, and we got overwhelming support from patrons. We are truly grateful for this support because it assists in enhancing the work of the association. And it will really remain a vital source of support for us and the many initiatives we bring forward to our community. We celebrated Reading Week from April 27 to May 3, 2025, under the theme Enhancing Literacy and Peace Through Multilingual Education. The week featured a variety of events and engagements. And so throughout that week, we had celebrations every day. Sunday, April 27, we started with church services in various locations island-wide. And this was to launch the week of activities for us and, of course, to seek divine guidance and blessing on our efforts. And yet in churches, we had the past emphasizing the work we do, and also the Sunday schools within the churches being engaged in literacy activities of various kinds. On Monday, April 28th, we had a thought-provoking webinar delivered by none other than Mrs. Jackson Reynolds. And yes, she was just on our morning sessions asking questions after the presentation. She delivered an impactful session on the historical roots and the stigmatization of Jamaican patois. Her insight enlightened.
Hello, ma'am. Hello.
Just mute those persons, please. Her insight highlighted how language can either divide or unify, with particular emphasis on the link between multilingualism and societal peace. Tuesday activities, participants were encouraged to create literacy peace gardens within their schools. And so they would have developed jingles or other literary pieces in celebration of the theme. On Wednesday, we had a panel discussion, and that featured a college lecturer and classroom teachers. And they offered both academic and practical classroom perspective on multilingual education and its impact on literacy and peace. Thursday was not to be left out. Everyone was encouraged to wear blue in solidarity and to symbolize peace. And of course, have peace ceremonies within schools. On Friday, May 2, schools hosted their were encouraged at least to host their literacy exhibitions or open days. And this was to showcase the work and literacy-centered activities that were done throughout the week. During that week, the JLA board members actively participated in school-based activities, and they visited schools, reading to students, and supporting various literacy events during the week. The following week, JTA celebrated its Read Across Jamaica Day. And of course, the JLA also supported that venture. In my capacity as president, I had the privilege of participating in St. Aloysius Primary School celebration under the theme, Let's Keep Reading Alive in 2025. And I was asked to illustrate the importance of reading widely, awakening a sense of purpose to be successful readers. Students were engaged actively, and of course, there was reading, so I went to various classes doing reading within the classes. As we look forward to another year, the Jamaica Literacy Association remains steadfast in its mission to promote reading and the teaching of reading at all levels. We are committed to increasing literacy awareness, fostering peace through multilingualism, and encouraging greater interest and professional expertise across Jamaica. Let us all continue to work together to ensure literacy is a shared national priority and a foundational pillar for peace as we understand our progress. And yes, there's much work to be done. We have seen the launch of a new program through the ministry, and we too have to lend our expertise in that project. So as the work of the Jamaica Literacy Association continues, we in JLAC long live the Jamaica Literacy Association. I thank you all.
Thank you very much, Madam President, for that overview of the year. At this time, we invite our treasurer to present her report.
It is just good afternoon. I say good afternoon to you all. And just before I present the treasurer's report, I'd just like to expand a little on the fundraising report given by our president. As she said, there was a good response from the public to this event. We had bought 120 tickets and we only had 7 tickets remaining. So we realized a profit of about $100,000. And there's still an amount of $24,500 to be collected. I just want to recognize the team of the people who took part in selling these tickets. Mrs. Cunningham, Mrs. Linda Loza, Mrs. Ione Facey, Mrs. Dulcie Townsend, Mrs. Beverly Harris, Mrs. Phyllis Anderson, and Mrs. Elsita Campbell Davis. And I just want to highlight that Mrs. Facey alone brought in over $100,000 because she brought her senior citizens group, which is about 35 people. So we thank her very much for that effort. And I just want to emphasize that this is really a good way of getting funds for our organization. But I'll ask you the next time and so on for the coming year, if we get much more cooperation from everybody, we can make double the amount that we did this year. Thank you. Now for the financial report, which is very, very short. I want to say that our current assets, as given by the accountant, is $4,056,552.24. Of that, we have a fixed deposit at NCB, which now has $3,881,226.26. And I'd also like to highlight that we had a donation of $250,000 this year. And this was from the Gwen Bedimer Fund. As you know, Gwen Bedimer, she was a past president of the association. And through the sale of her books, we get some donations from time to time. And for the year in review, we got $250,000. We also, as I mentioned before, made about $100,000 in fundraising. I will not mention how much we got for membership dues because it is really difficult to say the exact amount because sometimes when people deposit in the bank account, they do not say who it's from or whatever. So that has to be put down as donations, because sometimes we cannot trace where these funds came from. Our expenditure for the year was $321,871, and that included the $240,000 for the Battle Dawkins play, as well as registration fees for the company at the office of the companies, post office box expenses, gifts and tokens, bank charges, printing and copying, stationery, and traveling. And so our total expenses again, $321,871. And that ends the financial report. Are there any questions there?
I do not have a question. I'd just like to encourage our members, when they pay their membership